whatever we do in our environment has a way of coming back to us as a people. And that is where media platforms need to come in, to let the people understand that it is not the government you are doing. It does not matter where you are as a human being. It's about what you do to that space. If you break environmental laws, you should be prosecuted for it so that people would understand that there are implications for these actions. Because whatever you do in your space is not affecting just you, it's affecting another person.
Hello and welcome to Conversations Over Coffee, where bold conversations are brewed with purpose, shaping our world over a cup of coffee. I am Divine Alex, and today we are exploring a conversation that lives at the intersection of media, influence, and sustainability. Now more than ever, Africa's storytellers, our radio hosts, YouTubers, bloggers, and broadcasters, they have the power to do more than just entertain or inform, because they can also shape culture, influence behavior, and shift conversations toward building a greener, more sustainable future. So today we ask, what if the media wasn't just a mirror to society, but a megaphone for change? Joining me is someone who knows that power all too well. She's an incredible voice on the radio, a content creator on YouTube, and a practicing broadcast journalist using her platforms to connect, challenge, and uplift. Cassandra Yanombe, welcome to the show.
All of these accolades for me, like when you were reading that, or when you were talking about me in that way, I was wondering that am I still the same person?
It is you.
Well, good to see you. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for being on the show today.
Thank you so
Today,
much.
I want to ask you, before we get into the more serious thing, right? How did you get to be a broadcast journalist? Like, can you share your journey on how you got where you are today?
Okay, so I think that it's just about the fact that I love to stand in the gap. I love to just do something, be able to bring about that change that is very necessary, because we all talk about someone else doing it, and we are not really very much concerned about if we can actually do it. So most of the times, it's important that we also step in the gap when we see that something is going wrong. How do we come in to bridge that gap and ensure that that thing is fixed?
Okay.
If it's something wrong, we should be able to make it right and also right the wrongs. One person cannot do it all. And that is why if you see the trajectory, some people have done their part and we are doing our parts, and we'll leave it for the next generation to also do their part. So I think that that inspiration to become a media personality actually stemmed from the fact that I wanted to be a change agent, not just one that would talk about the news, but also be a part of making the news and also forming the narratives that should be spoken about, not just about the immediate community, not just about Nigeria, but also Africa at large. So I would say that that is just what inspired the dream, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes.
Now, this is a very personal question.
Okay.
I would really like to know, if you're not in the media space as a media practitioner, a media professional, OAP, YouTuber, blogger, all of those things, even MC, I forgot to mention.
Yes.
Now, which other profession or craft do you think that you'd be into?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so initially, when I was little, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So it still like relates to change, just depending on, I think when it has to do with law, depending on what side of law you choose, if you want to be the one that would be advocating for people. Of course, at the end of the day, it's all about advocacy, depending on who is paying. But at the end of the day, I think the part where you provide pro bono services, you do the kind of activism law. I always wanted that kind of law for myself. But as fate would have it, I'm also here, which I feel is also a bigger platform for me to project that that level of change, and also stand for the people as well. So it's still like the same thing, even though I may not be wearing the wig and then the whole
Suits,
exactly, but
thing,
exactly.
yeah.
So it's still, but this time around, a lawyer with the mic.
As a media personality with a large digital and traditional audience, what do you believe is the media's greatest responsibility in steering Africa towards sustainable development?
Okay, I would say that I'll first of all start by saying there is an old saying that the media is the mirror of society. Now, we reflect not just on what is, but what could be. Yes. So in this case, remember when I said it's not just about this is what should have or this is what is. We all complain about the situation and say this is what is there. But what about what can be or what could be? So it's about changing the narrative. So when you talk about the responsibility of the media, the media can be seen in different forms. But one of the narratives I would want to project here is the fact that the media is a mirror of society. This is to say that we must use our responsibility well by projecting Africa the way it's supposed to be. Africa has a lot of potential. And the most important thing is for us to not just count on the ills, not to just count on what they say about Africa, but what Africa can be. And the potential that Africa has, not just the natural resources, but also the human resource as well. We cannot deny the fact that Africa is so blessed with a lot of people, a lot of resources, and that energy, that very vibrant energy that we need to make Africa what it is at the end of the day. So I would say that the greatest responsibility of the media in this case would be not just focusing on what is here at the moment, but what it could be and forming the right narratives. You know, the media is very powerful. It is what the media says it is that the people would believe. So it's about the game power. It's about the fact that the media is so powerful, and when we realize that this power could be used to shape better narratives, I think the better for us. So it's about focusing on what we could be as a continent or what we could be as a society, rather than just focusing on our immediate issues as a nation.
Okay. Now, how can media platforms like radio, YouTube, and blogs be leveraged to normalize sustainable living, particularly among Africa's growing urban youth?
Okay. I think that I would first of all start by commending your platform, doing an amazing job, I must say. You know, like when it has to do with specialized broadcasting, people don't really see it as something very sustainable, especially when you're not talking about the video, you're not talking about whiskey and all of those. But I would want to say that it's a very right thing, a very right step in the right direction that your platform is doing. And just to add to that, we want to see more platforms like this, especially where they can champion not just sustainable development, but also advocate for sustainable living as well. Because at the end of the day, the practices that we do or whatever we practice as human beings have a way of affecting the environment or communities that we live in. So it is time for us to understand that whatever we do or we do not do as a people has implications. So I would say platforms like, you know, maybe blogs or even social media pages on YouTube and all of that, a lot of work has to go in. But at the same time, it's about the intentionality, understanding that there is a need in the first place. Because if you do not recognize that something needs to be done, you would not be motivated to go about it. Like your platform. Somebody woke up with a vision one day and saw that there is a gap. Climate is changing. It keeps changing. How can we stand in the gap rather than talk? How can we be there to just offer a platform, or not just offer a platform, but also be a part of changing the narrative or even shaping the narrative as the case may be. So when we realize that we all have a role to play, we all have a responsibility to play, whether as mainstream or digital media, we will go a long way. Now, the media space has been demystified so much that you don't need to be a trained professional. You don't need to be a trained professional to be in the media. I think the only thing that distinguishes us is that professionalism, that professional training that a proper journalist, yes, a broadcaster or whatever you may call it in that media space gets. But these days with your phone, you could just wake up and become a news person. You see people just go to events, you see people talk about anything, so long as they see something happening in their communities. They just pick up their phones. It doesn't matter what type of phone they use, so long as that phone is able to capture that. They talk about it and they post. That is to show how the environment has been demystified. When I talk about environment, I mean the media space. Yes, the media ecosystem is no longer just in the hands of a few. It has been democratized to a point that everybody, every Dick and Harry has access to becoming a media person. But what makes it different is the professionalism. The training is what makes other people to stand out. But that is not to say that we don't all have a role. We do all have a role to play, regardless of whether you're a professional or not. Because as it is at the moment, you see that citizens are journalists, and that is where you now get the title citizen journalism. You get the practice of citizen journalism when just ordinary citizens can pick up their phone and report about anything. So it just shows that all of these platforms that you've mentioned, they all have a role to play depending on how the citizens decide to make use of them. So the moment we understand that whatever goes in our environment or whatever goes on in our environment, whatever we do as a people has a way of coming back to us. Now you hear things, I know that sometimes we may not have, control over climate change and everything, but sometimes some of the consequences that come are as a result of what we do. Our environment is reacting to
it.
Yes. For instance, you wake up in the morning and you pack all the refuse in your house. And so rather than call the people disposing it, you decide to wait in the night and then you go discard it on the road. Imagine you do that. Your neighbor is also doing that as well. And then the next thing, what is going to happen? A heap is definitely going to come up. And when the rains come, the drainages are going to be blocked because all the sewage is going to go right into the gutters, all the drainage systems. And before you know it, these places are blocked and that becomes flooding. That is not to say that there are no other natural causes of flooding. But when we look at our environment, most times, it is reacting to our actions. So when people take to some of these social media platforms or all social media platforms as the case may be and say this is what we must do. We have environmental activists, we have people who talk about the environment and you are also into environmental activism, so it's still part of the process. We have a huge role to play as a people and these platforms are just there to help. And I would say that these platforms are very necessary because as much as the mainstream media is still very traditional and dominant, you cannot take away the place of the new media. You cannot take away the place of social media where people, no matter where they are, with just a click of their phone or just the tip of their finger, they can get news wherever they are. They don't need to be at home to watch a TV set these days. News is available by just a tip. So imagine you see that, you make a video and say, hey, stop defecating here. I think I remember Very Dark Man. Something happened about 2 weeks ago where he recorded a man who was defecating on the bridge. And that is like pollution because every other person is going to use that bridge. But you're coming to do your own human disposition there at the detriment of not just the environment, but other people that will be using that bridge as well. So imagine 10 people coming to do the same thing you're doing and it begins to pollute the whole place. It's definitely harmful to the environment. And then it washes all the way. You know, there are people who still drink from the streams. You cannot deny that. It washes all the way. And then people fetch that water to drink. And what happens? There is outbreak of diseases everywhere. So whatever we do in our environment has a way of coming back to us as a people. And that is where media platforms need to come in, to let the people understand that it is not the government you are doing. If you do not dump your refuse properly, it is yourself, because it will have a way of affecting you, right? And if you build on places you're not supposed to build, it will have a way of affecting us. Now, the government has marked that this place nobody should build. It has been earmarked for a drainage or something, and then you go build on it because you know somebody that knows somebody in the other part of government. One day, flooding may come and your house will go down. So it may not be now, but what we need to understand that for every action or inaction, there is a consequence. And a very clear example is what the environment keeps showing to us. That is just it. So I would say that the media has a very huge role, especially these social media platforms, they have a huge role to play, and they are very accessible to the people. And I would say they're like the first point of contact. So they cannot be taken out of the equation at all.
Okay, what role should storytelling play in pushing environmental consciousness into mainstream? And how do you think that we can do this without sounding preachy or losing audience?
I mentioned it earlier when I said if you're not talking about Wizkid or who is the richest or what the wedding that is bigger than this one, what celebrity had the biggest wedding, people are not interested. But I think that as much as you may not want to sound preachy, the passion is what makes the message to stand out. And I think what now makes it different is the fact that you are the professional in this case, and then you know how to package that message that is different from any random citizen that is just picking their phone to become a citizen journalist. This time you are a trained professional. Yes, that is where the training distinguishes you. It gives you the requisite knowledge on how you could package these messages. For instance, we are talking about storytelling. How about, we've seen people document a lot of places here in Nigeria and even other parts of Africa, slums, where they go to and say, oh, these people this is what they are doing. Yes. For people, for instance, living in Makoko in Lagos, that is their reality. But Makoko can be turned around into something better by the practices. Yes, we agree that the living conditions there might be harsh, something that you cannot doubt. But how about educating them on good practices? Because there are some people there that have to still pull in the same water that other people might drink. It's possible. They still use that same water to bath. Some people might be using that water to bathe. They might be using the water to wash their motorcycles or whatever it is that they're doing. It's very possible. They still build on that same water. So when you educate people to understand that their environment has a way of breaking free or reacting to certain things they do, I think that would help. And that is the point where storytelling comes in handy. Imagine you talking about how a child in Makoko can become successful. So they are forced to be resilient. You let them understand that as much as they are here in this environment, it doesn't mean that it's the definition of their lives. It is not. They can achieve something. And it starts with you educating them on those things. And then when we talk about the climate, on how they can also be good ambassadors of the environment or project that good environmental conditions, like I said, by practicing good hygiene. Yes, Makoko may not be that paradise we want it to be. I'm just giving Makoko as an instance.
Yes.
But what about our own personal hygiene? What about the personal practices that we do? When you pull, you don't just throw it over, you dispose it well. How about you not just throw your water or just throw a refuse anyhow? Those kind of practices, whether we do them or we do not do them, they all have a way of affecting our environment. So it does not matter where you are as a human being. It's about what you do to that space. Now, if you go to other slums here, even here in the FCT, there are slums. But it depends on how you manage your space and what's available at the time. So I would say that storytelling comes a long way. It depends on how we utilize it. And that is why you see a very dark man. He may not be a trained professional, but he has a way of bringing these things into the limelight. By talking about it, he could set up his camera, sit and talk about it, a story, and narrate it. He might just hold this, oh, see this man, this is what he's doing. It grabs your attention to be keen, to listen, to watch what he's doing at that moment. So storytelling is a very powerful tool, but we must be careful to do with the right narratives. As much as we are not there, as much as Africa is yet to get to that point, we must be careful how we paint Africa so that we do not get demoralized. There is hope. And it's just for us to look inward of what could be, like I said. It's not about just what is at the moment. Yes, but what Africa could be, what Nigeria could be, and what the world could be at large.
Okay, so now, with media being such a strong advertising tool, How do you think we should balance brand sponsorships and influence with promoting sustainable consumption habits and ethical partnerships?
Yes. Now, that is where the government also needs to play a very huge role, because the media cannot do it alone. The media is just one part. And for some people, they would say the media is the fourth estate of the realm. So after you have the other three tiers of government, the media is the fourth one, because the media is serving as a watchdog that is supposed to oversee everything that happens in the other tiers or arms of government. So now I would say that it's supposed to be a collaborative thing. The government is supposed to regulate. The government already has some regulation agencies, and that is why you see that there are some products that cannot be marketed in the mainstream media. It is not because, okay, they don't have people who are patronizing them. They may have people who patronize them, but because that is not supposed to be seen or accepted as what should be, those such products are regulated and censored, and they cannot go in the mainstream. And that is why you see that the advertising regulators are also there to play their role, so that the media professionals or media houses do not overstep. As much as you want to make money, ethics should be there. And that is where ethics come in. You remember that as much as you want to hype a product, don't overstep, so that you don't say things about it that do not exist. And if that product is harmful, for instance, a professional is supposed to know that if somebody brings a product to advertise, what is the benefit of this product? And apart from the benefits, what is the recycling process? How is the discardment of the end product? How is it going to be like? These are some of the questions that we should ask as media professionals. And apart from that, people should be educated on products to use and not to use, because some of these products have a way of affecting the environment. Now, there are some chemicals that we use on our farms that have a way of affecting the soil. Such products should not be sold or should be minimized. And that is why they have been advocating for organic fertilizers, because when you use so much of these artificial products on the soil, it has a way of affecting the environment. All of these things, you can now see that it's all linked to our biosystem, where everything is intertwined, because it is the practices that we do or practice as human beings that still come back to haunt us. So when the environment is tired of having it, it has to break free. So I would say that we must look inward, and that is where the government has to play a role. We, the media professionals, have to play a role, and then the masses also have to play a role. So it's like an interconnectedness of all our responsibilities. We all have a role to play. So we as media professionals, we must be ethical, and the ethics are there for us to understand. And then as for the government, they also have their regulatory bodies that are responsible for overseeing all of these things. And then with the media, sensitizing people, conscientizing them, they get to understand that, yes, I have a role to play. It is not just the government. It's not just the media. You know, the media is very powerful in shaping the narratives. So once somebody sees something, they say, oh, it is divine who said it on TV. Do you know that someone is willing to believe you, a TV presenter, over their parent? They say, I saw it on TV. I saw it. I listened to it in the news. It is because whatever they see or hear from the media, they believe it. They tend that it is true. They tend to believe it's true because they believe that we are professionals. We are supposed to stand in the gap and be able to bridge that gap, that whatever passes the editorial board is already done. They believe that that is what is authentic. So we must not fail these people who look up to us, that we are who we are. We must not take the profession for granted. We must not break that trust that the masses have in us to give them accurate information. So if you know a product is going to be harmful to the environment, I don't think you should go ahead promote it. The ethical holdings, the professional holdings, and of course, the fact that we are humans and we must consider the environment in which we live and breathe in is very important. We should be reminded of that every time. So that role that people look up to us, I mean, the responsibility that comes with people looking up to us, we must be reminded of that responsibility every time.
Okay. Do you think the African media industry is doing enough to spotlight local innovations in renewable energy, recycling, eco fashion, and green tech, or do you think that we are stuck in the global hype loop?
Okay, I would say that no nation, no continent has it all figured out. As I would say that we also have our peculiar issues, we have our peculiar challenges. The West also have their own, but Africa is making progress. At least we are becoming more educated. There are places you go and they don't even make use of the regular electricity. They make use of the sun, the renewable energy, and all of that because they are trying to make use of the environment. We might not be there, but we are obviously getting there. But it is time for us to write our own stories, tell our stories, be the shapers of our stories as well. I think that we have been more focused on what is happening in other parts of the world than focused on what is happening in Africa. It is time for us to be Africans for Africa. I'm not saying that we do not need that place where we are also worried about what happens in the world, because whatever affects the world affects Africa, same as what affects Africa affects the world, because the world cannot do without Africa. So at the end of the day, it is time for us to also curate narratives that are beneficial to us. So as much as I would say we are progressing, there is so much of work to be done. We still need to do so much of work, especially as media professionals. And that's why I even commended your station, because you have decided to specialize, and we need more people like this to go into this specialized form of broadcasting so that people would understand the seriousness, in the intensity of the issues that are there for us to talk about. Because at this point, you are focusing on the environment, you're focusing on climate change, you're focusing on how whatever we do within our living spaces has a way of affecting us. So we must take control of the narrative and do what we need to do so that we push Africa to the heights that it needs to be. But that is not to say that we are not making progress. We are making progress. If you go to the new media, on social media, you would see that a lot of youngsters are doing so much. But apart from the talks, away from just having meetings and talking, what happens? What do we do in our spaces when nobody's watching? How do you dispose your refuse? I'm so particular about this because some people do not see that as anything. Do you just look around when you're done eating something, a wrap of biscuit or something, and then you throw it?
Just fling it.
I remember something, and let me just give this analogy. So when we were in secondary school, our principal would say, don't dump your refuse anyhow. Make sure that whatever you eat, put it in your bag till you see a nearest dustbin. Do you know I still do that till now? Because somehow, even though she has passed, I still hear a voice in me that don't do it. Like, I still put it in my bag until I see the nearest dustbin. But you know, sometimes I walk a long way and I don't see a dustbin. So there is still so much that we need to do. Because as much as we may not want to excuse some acts, the unavailability of certain resources might push us to do certain things that we're not supposed to do. Somebody ideally does not want to drop that wrap of banana or that piece or peel of banana, but because they did not see a bean. And how do you now start putting your banana peel inside your bag? Not everybody might want to do it. So we must always be very strategic. Imagine placing those beans at every strategic point. And sanctions should be meted to those that break the laws. The civil laws, yes, they should be. Sanctions should be meted to them. If you break environmental laws, you should be prosecuted for it so that people would understand that there are implications for these actions. Because whatever you do in your space is not affecting just you, it's affecting another person. So imagine another person coming to dump something. Yes, you may say you don't live around there, but what about the other? Exactly. So at the end of the day, it's just for us to have that collaborative effort, not just as media professionals, but as government and also as the people. And together, it's like a triple treat where we come together and achieve so much. It's like a joint effort at the end of the day. So we shouldn't be waiting for global platforms to champion our own concerns as regards what we need to do to our environment. We must take control of the narrative. African media must be for Africa. Yes.
How do media narratives, both traditional and digital, shape public attitudes towards environmental issues? And what risks do you think that we face when we talk about sustainability, whether it's underreported or sensationalized?
The moment you do not know anything about your environment, you are deformed or you are dead. As simple as that. Because information is power. Whoever said that was not joking. And it is the truth. When you know about something, when you know something about something, it makes you a better person. Nobody knows it all, and that is why we always have to be in that gap to educate people. There are some people that do things to the environment, they don't know that, what they are doing is bad until you tell them. There are people who are ignorant. They are ignorant. They don't know it. But when we continue to sensitize them, speak to their consciousness that this is what should be. And like I said at the beginning of our conversation, the media is a powerful tool. It is like a mirror. For instance, if you stand in front of a mirror, is what you're seeing there that. So imagine, yes.
Yeah.
So when we reflect the stories the way they are, let these people know that your practices are either harmful or good to the environment. They will know that this is what they need to do. And another thing is on the reporting. We must report. Underreporting is another thing that is standing in the way of achieving that progress. So we must not underreport. We must not underreport. We must state things the way they are so that people will be able to know. Those that are ignorant will be sensitized. We need a consistent reporting, not just one that is here today and down tomorrow. We must continue this effort. This is because the media owes the society, and the media must always be reminded or be aware of that role that yes, the people are looking up to us. So like I said it earlier, the media is not just the mirror, but a megaphone that helps to amplify these issues. And we are not just amplifying these issues because we know how to talk. It is because we want to see change, and we must be in the forefront of engineering that change. We shouldn't just preach, we should also practice as media professionals.
As a sought-after female MC in Abuja, you command both stages and audiences. How do you think event hosting can intentionally be used to spotlight sustainability themes, influence eco-conscious event planning, and promote green business and green business partnerships?
So when we talk about the environment, we are looking for what is environmental friendly, eco-friendly. And there is eco-friendly decor, using pieces that are eco-friendly to decorate event spaces. Do you know that there are makeup artists, or should I say that beauty entrepreneurs who are making eco-friendly products? They're not going all chemicals or artificial. They have products that are organic. There are some makeup artists that only use products that are eco-friendly. And I think that can also be applied to event planning as well, event spaces. I think that event planners should look at how people are coming to stay in a space, sometimes 5-6 hours, depending on the event, sometimes 8 hours. So how can you put pieces that are eco-friendly so that when people are exchanging their breath, it's going out properly and the environment is well ventilated to a point that when someone leaves there, they don't go back with an illness or something. And then when they are done, how are they disposing whatever it is that they're using there? What method, what form are you serving them food? All of these things. I think there was a time that the Lagos State government even banned the use of what they call it. There's a particular takeaway pack that is used for packaging food. Some people will even tell you that the plastic takeaway is not recommended for you to keep it for long. So all of these things are some of those things that we need to put into consideration. Yes, for some people, if they want to cater for an event, maybe they will not go for the plastic bottles. They will decide to use the glass bottles that are recyclable so that people can use them and drop them, and then they pick them up from there and then they take it. So it depends on the practices, and not just as a media professional, but as an MC, I would say it's about letting them know that we have a major role to play. You don't need the mic to do the right thing. As an event planner, you also have a huge role to play in environmental development or sustainable development, as the case may be.
we've talked about events and the recycling and all that, even though some people are going to have to disagree with you, because most times when people host events or plan events and they're really scared, like for example, there's this event that we went to, then they decided not to use any plastics, no takeaways, no, all those foils and all that.
Yes.
So the normal plates, which is not the takeaway plates,
you have to eat
some
there.
people, some people now decided to go home with the plates.
Yes.
Forcing them to say, okay, next time I'm not going to do this because
it's expensive. The plates are expensive, than disposable ones.
So I understand that if we look towards that, but do you think that this can be achieved? Do you think that there are other methods that we can put in place to assist both the event planners, people hosting the event, and also the people that is coming to maybe, just maybe, go home with this plate and spoons?
Change is not easy. Change is a gradual process, and as good as it is also a painful process. It's just for people to realize or understand that change has to come some way. And it continues with the sensitization of the people that you have to behave in a civilized way. If you cannot eat the food there, then maybe you shouldn't eat it. No point carrying somebody's plate and taking it. But I think this is another point that calls for us to look outward or look inward, depending on what side you stand. How can we manufacture products that are environmental friendly, that are eco-friendly, and at the same time serve our purpose? You know that we can bring about that organic takeaways that are not harmful to the environment, whether you dispose them or not. That can be made if it's not already existing. They should look inward. They should look out there, make research and bring it, so that as much as we want to protect the environment, some people want to take their food home because some people may not be hungry at that time in this scenario. And then also, rather than use the regular electricity, the lights you are using, how about making it solar powered so that we are generating that energy directly from the sun? That is, we are renewing energy. We are recycling it. So it's not just about the parks. It's also about the form of energy that we use in these event centers or halls. It has a way of helping, or should I say, contributing to sustainable environmental development, as the case may be. So when we look inward, there is nothing that is impossible. You might just be shocked that there is something out there like that existing already. I do not know, I won't lie, but if you check it out there, you would know that something like that might be existing. So these event planners need to go out of their way and see how, at the same time, they are catering to the people, but also protecting the environment as well.
Now, Cassandra, Nigeria's informal markets are booming, but many still generate or operate with zero environmental accountability. How do you think that the media voices like yours as an influencer can influence small businesses to embrace greener practices without losing their profit edge?
Let them know that they can move to the other one without losing as well. I know that you might have, invested so much, but like I said earlier, change is painful. And it's about agreeing as a people that this is where we want to be, or this is what could be, or this is what should be. And that what could be or what should be is not a journey of one day. It is a journey, a gradual step that we continue to take. Our baby steps will grow, and then they'll continue to grow. And imagine telling someone that has invested so much in these parks and telling them that, or someone bought their generators, and then you're not telling them that the fumes from the generator will be polluting everywhere, or the noise, and it's harmful to the environment. Do you think he's going to hear that? But it's about how you educate them or sensitize them to understand that as much as you want to make profit from selling generators, these generators are harmful. The fume that comes out from this generator can kill people. The noise can literally make you, somebody's talking and you are shouting. What are you saying? Or you are shouting and the person is not even hearing what you're saying. So they need to understand that if we must be where we need to be, we must all come together, make sacrifices. And that is why change is a painful process. And I love what tailors are doing these days. Let me give you an instance of how even tailors can be on board. They make one cloth and they can wear that cloth in different ways. People are not just throwing their clothes or dumping them anywhere. Maybe I have a blazer and I want to now turn it into a sleeveless jacket. I can remove the hands and then I make. So all of these recycling practices, they help to save the environment from harm. Different ways. And this also applies to the equipment or appliances that we use in our homes. What happened to your television sets that you are no longer using that are gotten spoiled? Do you know that there are some emissions in that television set that if you just dump them anyhow, they are harmful to this to the environment. They are harmful because of the chemicals or components that are used to make that TV set. When you just go dump them, it has a way of going back to the environment. And it's harmful at the end of it. So people need to understand this thing that your radio set that got spoiled, you don't just throw it away like that. That battery that you removed from your radio, you can't just throw it like that. The battery from your phone that you want to repair and then you have to put another one, you can't just throw it like that. We need to have a regulation where all of these things are dumped.
Okay.
Because I think they can be recycled. Yes.
Okay. There's a rise in eco-business scenes in Nigeria, from waste recycling to solar-powered startups. How do you think that media professionals can help to scale these efforts from niche to nationwide movements?
It's by projecting them, amplifying them, and encouraging them. More of these people should be able to talk. They should be given a platform at little or no cost. They should be given a platform to project what they are doing. So that the world will continue to know that something like this is happening in Africa, something like this is happening in Nigeria, it's happening in Rwanda, it's happening in Kenya, it's happening in different parts of Africa, to show that there are people who are keen into green energy, sustainable environmental practices. So the media needs to platform these people, give them that base, amplify them, and that is where we also need to play a part by shaping the narrative. And when I talk about shaping the narrative, it's not just about the stories we make. How about we amplify the stories of other Africans that are doing it in the environmental space? So your platform is already doing a lot. And I believe that so many other platforms can still do something to join the efforts and make sure that these people are given that platform, they're given that boost that is needed so that they would continue what they are doing.
Okay, earlier you talked about regulations.
Yes.
How do you think that media professionals or practitioners should, help in championing these regulations? Or do you also think that media practitioners should also be regulated to regulate all of these developments?
Of course, regulation is very important. It could either be self-regulation or government regulation. Okay. There are things that you may not do as a person, not because you cannot do it, but you have self-regulation. For instance, you cannot just stand up here and go and put your hand inside fire because you know that there will be consequence. That is self-regulation. You are regulating yourself. You can't just stand up from here, you want to cross the road, and then you are just going without looking left or right. It is something inside of you that is telling you to regulate yourself and not just bump into the road because you want to be in the next point. So that same thing should apply to us as well. What you know that cannot be said, don't say it. And what should be said, should be said. So it also applies to functioning with the government. I've always said that it is not just the government. It is a collaborative thing. We have to work with the government. The government has to also give the media the benefit of the doubt. As much as we shout regulation or talk about regulation, the government should also be able to give the media the benefit of the doubt. If the stories are going to be beneficial to the masses, let the stories fly. Regulation is very important. And yes, without regulation, some media organizations will go overboard. Will take advantage of that depending on who is paying the piper. But at the same time, I would say self-regulation is very important. What you won't do in your corner or what you know is wrong, don't do it. So it is like a collaborative thing. It's not just about the government, but also the media knowing its responsibility and roles. Just as the government knows its roles and should follow those rules. It's one thing to know your role, and it's one thing for you to be deliberate about following those rules. Okay. So it's our role to ensure that the government does the needful. And yes, we must not wait for the government to come regulate us to do the right thing. The profession, the training is supposed to make us understand that the ethics are there for us to follow. And morality is also very important. Some people will say, oh, morality may not. Morality has a place. The God you believe in, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jewish, whatever you believe in should be the pillar of your consciousness whenever you pick that mic to say something or do something, as the case may be. So I would say that regulation is very important. And yes, media is already regulated, but the follow-up is where the case is. And as much as the government might put in those regulations, it is left for the media to follow.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what regulations would you recommend for both media practitioners to follow and people who are also in there that is looking up to the media practitioners and professionals on how to better manage the impact of media professionalism, practitioners, and all that to sustainable development?
Regulation is not a problem. The laws are not even, we have a lot of these laws. We have the regulations are already there. The problem is to follow, to implement. Follow this, yes. So I would recommend implementation. I would recommend following these regulations because they are already there. The government has advertising agencies that are responsible for checkmating and overseeing that whatever is aired is appropriate. So you don't just air any advert because you have been paid. Is that product harmful or useful to the environment? So it's about you following or implementing these regulations. The laws are not insufficient at all. We already have these regulations. The only thing left is for us to be conscious enough. And that is why I say that we might also use the moral pillar. Whatever we believe in, whatever God we worship, we must be able to remember that. Will I do this on a normal day? Will God be happy with me? Yes, ethics, we might be big on ethics, but we should also be big on morals. I think that way it will help us to go a long way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
In one word or in your own terms, can you summarize all of these things, the link between media professionalism, practitioners, and all that to sustainable development, green growth initiatives, and all that?
Yes, as media professionals, we need to build ecosystems around the stories of those that are already doing this to inspire action more. Yes, when you project the people that are already doing this, those that may want to go into it will be inspired to take the step. And then the people continue to be conscientized on what they need to do to save the environment. And there are so many ways that we can do this. Now, the media is not just mainstream again. Like I said earlier, it has been demystified. It has been democratized in such a way that any Dick and Harry can just become a journalist. But it does not make them professional. But at the same time, we all have a role to play. If you see something, say something. And that is why you see for some stations, they have the eyewitness segments on their news, they have programs where people call in or people send videos of something happening in their environment, that this is what it's going on here. This is what this person is doing. Somebody is digging a well where they're not supposed to dig a well, a borehole where they're not supposed to dig a borehole. And they send the picture, and then the media is supposed to go there, cover it. Or somebody has come to occupy a land that has been earmarked for a drainage. The media should fearlessly go there and project it. The media might not go and say, hey, stop. But how we amplify such a story would depend on the outcome. And when it comes out in the public, as much as we might say, oh, the court of public perception might not be it all, but it will engineer change that we want to see. So the media has a huge role to play. And the earlier we understand this, the better for not just us, but our environment as well.
Wow. What we've heard today is clear. Media isn't just a tool, it's a responsibility. Like she has been saying it back to back, it is for all of us. And when we underuse or misuse it, the consequences equal far beyond the airwaves. They reach into our environment, our communities, and our futures. From creators like Cassandra to producers behind the scenes, we all have a part to play in pushing sustainable development forward, either through storytelling, coverage, and content that informs and also inspires. If you have a mic, a phone, a lens, or a platform, you can use it. Use it to normalize sustainable living, promote eco-businesses, and hold spaces for the voices-driven green innovation. Because in Africa, where the stakes are high and the voices are rising, sustainable development can't thrive without intentional media. So let's be that intention and intentional. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. It's
my name
pleasure.
is Divine Alex, and the comment section is open for you to share your thoughts and your opinion. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at Green Growth TV. Bye for now.